So I have that bleeding cough today and I was like, no.
All right, I have 6 o'clock on the nose. I'll call this meeting to order. Jeannie, will you lead us in the flag salute, please?
Please rise and join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Nicely done.
Next item, please.
Next item is roll call. Councilmember Bruins.
Present.
Councilmember Daniels.
Here.
Councilmember Miller.
Present.
Vice Mayor Schaefer.
Here.
And Mayor Middleton.
Here.
Of the Citrus Heights City Council is Cablecast Live on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel on the Comcast Consolidated Communications and AT&T Uverse cable systems. This meeting is closed captioned and live streamed at citrusheights.net. Tonight's meeting replays on Monday, October 17th at 9 a.m. on channel 14. This meeting can also be viewed on the city's YouTube channel.
Item, please.
Next item is approval of agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Miller, second by Bruins. All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. Next item, please.
Next item is public comment, and members of the public may address the council on any agenda item of interest to the public and within the council's purview, or on any agenda item before or during the council's consideration of the item. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes each. If you wish to address the council during the meeting, please either complete a speaker identification sheet and give it to myself. If participating via Zoom, use the raise hand function or *9 from a telephone to indicate your desire to speak. When your name is called, either come to the podium or the city clerk will allow you to unmute your microphone.
No one running up. Madam Clerk, do we have any written comment?
I do have 2 written comment that I will go ahead and read now, and I do not see any raised hands
Thank you.
in Zoom. The first public comment is from Alfred Sanchez. I would like the city to come up with guidelines of our own regarding opening cooling centers. I understand the city posts this on the website, but it's like the day before sometimes. Can the council please take a vote to add this to future agenda and take necessary steps to do this? It's confusing now. The next public comment is from K.E. DeMarco. I would like to request a consideration of a sound wall installation on Antelope Road between Sunrise Mariposa to Auburn Boulevard. Also painting reflecting the bike and pedestrian areas more clearly. This is a very fast moving, dangerous stretch of road for anyone, and making an appropriate bike pedestrian path as well as sound wall beautification of same area would be multifaceted improvement of the area. Cleaning, trimming, overhang is also overdue. The new LED lights, no turn on red and yellow trim on the signals really doesn't do much but annoy the longtime residents at the corner of Mariposa Antelope. Fix the pedestrian bike walkways on dangerous curves next, please. Thank you. And that concludes the public comment.
I also have several public speakers comment sheets for item number 11. I'll hold them to that time. And the next item, please.
Next item is presentation Number 4, presentation of a proclamation recognizing September 18th through 24th, 2022 as National Forensic Science Week.
Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. We have a proclamation for National Forensic Science Week, and let me read it. Whereas, and there's a lot of them, so I'm going to skip the rest. The 4th week in September 2022 is recognized as National Forensic Science Week. And the forensic science service providers address critical questions in civil and criminal investigations and trials in the United States, including by providing scientific conclusions relating to forensic evidence. Forensic science service providers partner with federal agencies to build and maintain criminal databases relating to latent prints, DNA, and other information relevant to criminal cases, as well as other federal, state, and local agencies to ensure public safety. Forensic Science Service, this is a hard one to say, for me anyway. Providers serve a vital role in the criminal justice system by providing scientific information to investigators and officers of the court. The City of Citrus Heights crime scene property evidence specialists are trained in physical evidence collection, preservation, and reconstruction of crime scenes to preserve evidence for future prosecution. City of Citrus Heights is committed to the use of forensic science in the investigation of crimes, the prosecution and conviction of the correct perpetrators of crimes, and the exoneration of innocent individuals falsely accused of crimes in the United States. So therefore, be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Citrus Heights declares the week of September 18th through 24th, 2022 as the National Forensic Science Week in honor of the women and men whose diligence and professionalism are tremendous assets to the overall police department as they work to keep our city and citizens safe. If our mayor has set her hand and seal on this 13th day of October 2022 and attested by our city clerk. We'll now go to the podium to present the proclamation to Lieutenant Morris, and I ask my fellow council members to join me at the podium. His fingerprints. Are you accepting it?
I am.
Very good. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you for all you do. Would you like to say a few words?
No,
That's
yes,
Chad.
no.
That's Chad's job.
They just solve these crimes. We,
Yes.
Take a photo with you? Yeah, okay.
Should I lay across the front?
Okay.
Right across the front.
Oh,
Line up,
I can
scoot
say
in,
something.
scooch in, scooch in, scooch in, scooch in. Kind of short, you might
No,
want.
I'm not short.
Thank you.
It's embarrassing.
Let's do this.
Hey, Wallace.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council. I'm Lieutenant Chad Morris with the Citrus Heights Police Department. I want to begin by thanking you for taking the time to recognize our crime scene investigators as part of National Forensic Science Week. I can't say enough about our crime scene investigations team. Their abilities to leverage forensic science to solve a variety of complex crimes is nothing short of amazing. I can't say enough about them, and I'm truly appreciative of having them on our CHPD team. And tonight I have the stars of the show with me. So to my right, in the center here, we have senior crime scene investigator Daniel Veal. Crime scene investigator Shelby Spiegel. And crime scene investigative assistant Kathy Pentecost. I'd like to personally thank each member of this team for their hard work, diligence, and passion in making this unit all that it can be. And most of all, I want to thank each of you for recognizing our team this evening. Thank you very much.
Next item is presentation number 5, a presentation of a proclamation recognizing the second week of October as Code Enforcement Officer Appreciation Week.
Mr. Daniels.
Thank you. Okay, I'm really glad I didn't have to read that last one. I want to hear you say critical questions 3 times in a row. Real question. I'm going to read this proclamation. It's not too long, so I'm just going to read it all and hopefully get through it. This is a proclamation of the city of Citrus Heights proclaiming the second week of October as Code Enforcement Officer Appreciation Week. Whereas code enforcement officers provide for the safety, health, and welfare of citizens and communities throughout the state of California through the enforcement of local, state, and federal laws and ordinances dealing with various issues of building, zoning, housing, animal control, environmental, health, and life safety. And whereas code enforcement officers have challenging and demanding roles and often do not receive recognition for the job they do in improving the quality of life for residents and businesses of local communities. And whereas the role of many code enforcement officers has expanded in recent years, with jurisdictions increasingly relying on the expertise and training of code enforcement officers in their communities. And whereas code enforcement officers are dedicated, highly qualified, and highly trained professionals who share the goals of preventing neighborhood deterioration, enhancing community and ensuring safety and preserving property values through knowledge, training, and application of housing, zoning, and nuisance laws. And whereas code enforcement officers often have a highly visible role in the communities they serve and regularly interact with the public and a variety of federal, state, county, and local officials in their capacity as a code enforcement officer. And lastly, whereas the state of California wants to recognize and honor code enforcement officers in our community and acknowledge their role in leading the way to improve quality of life with communities. Now, therefore, it be resolved that the City Council of Citrus Heights does hereby proclaim the second week of October as Code Enforcement Officer Appreciation Week, and do hereby urge all Citrus Heights community members to join in recognizing and expressing their appreciation for the dedication and serving individuals who serve as our code enforcement officers. And I will now present the proclamation to our Police Services Supervisor, Deborah Nathan, and ask my fellow council members to join me at the podium.
Do we like each other?
One more time.
Let's mix it up. Did you want to get in front?
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. Again, I am Police Services Supervisor Deborah Nathan of the Citrus Heights Police Department. I supervise our code enforcement, rental housing program, and animal services. I want to express my appreciation and gratitude to our city council members for recognizing the Code Enforcement Unit with this proclamation and Code Enforcement Appreciation Week. Whereas I want to introduce you to our code enforcement officers. 3 of 4 of them are here tonight. This is Officer Dominic Grillo, Officer Teresa Don, and Officer Krista Stover. day, our code enforcement officers work diligently to ensure our properties, vacant lots, and businesses are maintained, cleaned, and safe for our community members. Code officers are here to enhance the quality of life for our community members and businesses. I would like to personally thank each of you guys, the members of my team, for your dedication and hard work every day. I'm truly amazed and inspired by all of you. It is both an honor and a privilege to work alongside of you each and every day. Thank you so much. Thank you, council members.
Next item, please.
Next item is comments by council members and regional board updates.
Bruin, start us off, please.
Okay, I will. So I'd like to give you a report from the Police Activities League meeting we had yesterday. First of all, we are going to be participating, our kids, in the Halloween Parade this coming Saturday, which starts at 9 o'clock in the morning on Auburn Boulevard at Twin Oaks and Auburn. Goes down the street and ends at Rush Park, and there'll be a festival, Harvest Festival there, and they will also be participating in that. Secondly, we had a great response from the public for our project at Sunday Fun Day, where for a $20 donation to PAL, you could park in the VIP parking lot, raise about $700 for that for the purposes of our kids. So we want to thank all who participated in that as well. And thank you to our volunteers, especially superstar Julie Habib, who is going to be PAL Member of the Year because of her dedication to that long morning. Then we also are going to have our annual Trunk or Treat event, which is on the 26th of October from 4 o'clock to 8 o'clock. And this year, for the first time, it's going to be a walking event. We have so far 32 exhibitors and more coming in. So this is a great time to bring your families out, whether you want to do it in the daylight hours or after dark, and to celebrate with us as we have a fun time. We're also looking for candy donations, so you can't be at too many. So if you have the opportunity to donate some candy just bring it over to the police department, we'll gladly accept it. Okay, and then I also had a sanitation board meeting yesterday, and I think the most interesting thing on the agenda was just a report on our Confluence Regional Partnership Program. And what this is a program of allocating funds that come into us that are non-ratepayer or non-project funds. They're coming from either dividends or the lease or sale of property, things that don't affect the ratepayer. And several years ago, we voted to divide these funds into 4 categories. The highest priority one being giving a $15 a month subsidy to low-income homeowners and renters, so they have a little break on their sewer rates. And so the other projects don't get funded until this is fully funded, because this is our highest priority. Secondly, to help offset the cost of conversions from septic tank to sewer systems, to get people off septic tanks that eventually will fail. They can get a grant from between $10,000 and $20,000 to help offset those costs. I'm very happy about that as well. Third is the American River cleanup. We participate in that with the American River, I think of the name of it, nonprofit group that oversees that. And fourth, there's an education component for kids. They have various kinds of tours and educational programs. And so I'm very excited that we're able to fund that as well and talk about water safety, environmental stewardship, things like that. And then I'm also serving on a committee, a governance committee, which we had our first meeting yesterday after the board meeting. And we're looking at 2 very important things. The big action is whether and how to merge our 2 boards. We actually have 2 boards. We have Sacramento Regional County Sanitation Board, which is the large pipes that deliver to the wastewater treatment plant and the treatment itself. And then we have the Sacramento Area Sewer Board, which are the small pipes that come from our houses and feed into the big pipes. These two districts are probably about 40 years old now, and it makes sense from an efficiency standpoint to merge them into one board. So this committee is working on that, and with the goal to make a recommendation to the full board before the end of the year. And then the second part of that is always the hard, what do we call it? Do we call it this board or that, this district or that district? And so we had some discussion about that. It kind of reminded me of the days when we first rolled out our police department, and we had discussion about what our police cars should look like, and being true Citrus Heights devotees, we went out with like citrus colors, of course, orange and green on white cars. And then there was orange and black for a while. Finally, our police department said, we really want black and whites like everybody else. So our best decisions weren't all that hot. And so we'll see what comes out of this naming of the new district. And then we'll go forward from there. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Daniels.
Thank you very much. Not a whole lot on the 30th of September. I attended along with the mayor, the city manager, police chief, and all kinds of police guys. And then I can't remember if there were other council members, so forgive me. But we attended the Sacramento District Attorney Appreciation Luncheon and got a chance to honor Ann Schubert. And what an incredible lady, and what a horrible loss, terrible loss it's going to be to Sacramento when she moves on. But the point being that the theme of this event was one pill can kill. And I'm bringing it up because I want to hopefully reach one person. If I reach one person and tell them to make sure they understand what's going on with fentanyl in our country, that it isn't just your teenager, it's your 25-year-old son, it's your 50-year-old dad. It's not contained to our youth. We hear about it when it's with our youth, but it's all over the place, and it's evil what's going on. And so if you can reach one person and make them understand that one pill can kill, I think that would be a wonderful thing. Our country is truly going through I think, purposeful crisis. I think it's being put upon us, and hopefully we'll do something about it. But in the meantime, please get that message, and mainly to your young ones, but don't think it's something contained to you, just your kids. Okay, so I've had the opportunity to travel around Citrus Heights over the last 4 or 5 weeks, a whole lot. And I'm shocked at the number of inoperative cars on our streets. They look ugly. I've seen cars that have weeds that are growing 3 feet high around them and stuff. And I realized that those wonderful people that we just honored a little while ago, we mainly do a reactive type approach to our code enforcement and stuff like that. But I'm wondering if we might want to examine doing a proactive sweep of inoperative cars. They make the neighborhood look horrible, and it's that broken windows thing. It kind of feeds on itself too. And so just something to think about. I would support it, and I don't like government intrusion and stuff like that. But if your car's not running, the least you can do is go out and clean up around it, wash it, so it looks like it's running. It's because it's just making the neighborhood look terrible. Today, I had the opportunity to meet with our honorable chief and get a little bit of update. I'm so pleased to hear that our impact team is coming around. We're almost there. It's wonderful that our beautification crew is almost in place. It's wonderful. And I can't wait to see the changes that come along when we get that whole system up and running. It's going to be, I think, wonderful for Citrus Heights, and the public is going to be able to visually notice a big change in Citrus Heights. And then on that, I want to thank the chief, the city manager, probably CSD, and probably a whole lot more people for their hard work over at the Van Maren and Auburn area. That's a tough spot because the library is public property. And unfortunately, we can't prevent people from sleeping on public property, but a lot of that negative stuff had grown and had really gotten bad quickly. And I just want to, again, extend my appreciation to those that responded in cleaning up that corner. I went back today and a little bit of the riffraff is back. And so it's just it's a cycle, but be the squeaky wheel. And that's how we keep things on top of things. And so just want to express my appreciation for those involved that got that area cleaned up. It looked great. Thank you so much. I think that's it.
Mr. Miller.
Thank you. This week, I attended the American Public Transit Association, or APTIS, convention in Seattle. It was well attended. There was like 4,000 folks there. And I was there to support the general manager, Henry Lee, and other board members as we did a presentation on our library train. And it's not anything new. They've had library trains with shelves on it, real books, but they don't go around corners too well. And also when people check books out, they have to be restocked. It's physically demanding. And so in cooperation with the Sacramento Library System, we have, it's almost like a wrap where they've put bookshelves and it has images of books, but in containing those books, and it's all different subject, is a QR code. And if you're writing it, you can take a picture of it and it'll send you, and you can read that book while you're on the train. You can you can check it out. And if you don't have a library card, well, there's a QR code to get a free library card. So it's very innovative, I thought. And it was a good convention to go to. Seattle's looking a lot better after what happened during COVID, and I'll just leave it at that. And then today we had a Sacramento Transportation Authority meeting, and we were asked to prioritize 2 projects because there wasn't money for enough for both of them. And it was the Gold Line and White Rock Road that had submitted requests, and the majority favored the Gold Line this year and the second phase of White Rock Road in the next round of funding. And that's all I have to report.
Thank you. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm just going to dovetail on what Councilmember Miller said, is that I serve on the Public Library Board. I enjoy that board immensely. There's some really great innovative things that are going there. I'm delighted to report that the book Becoming the City of Citrus Heights is now in the Sacramento Library System. So I'm delighted to report that. That's a great thing. I also met with Chief Turcotte, and I picked the Sylvan Corners Starbucks because it's a busy location, and I think it's good for us to be seen in public. And we met right there about the time that school got out, and all the kids came in and they saw the chief and they just felt like, wow, he's right here. And it was really a really fun experience to see all the kids, and the chief said, well, they all know me. Well, that's great. That's a wonderful, that really is a great thing for the chief. So other than that, I don't have anything else to report. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Well, Chief, seems like you've been busy. I too had my meeting with the chief, and we talked in depth about a lot of different things that are going on in the city, but mostly about what's going right and how he's going to continue to keep us on the right path. So very appreciative. Thank you, Chief. Also, the SACOG Race, Equity, Inclusion Policy and Innovation Committee recently approved our final draft of the working document to ensure that equitable access for impacted communities are taken into consideration whenever we're doing a transportation project or road funding. And that's important because we often don't realize the impact that we have when we say, well, we're going to put, a substation here, we're going to put a new road here. And what does that mean for the communities that are going to be impacted by that, specifically lower income communities, communities of color? And I worked really hard the last year on that group to make sure that we actually take that into consideration. We talk to the members of the community first before we go around approving these projects to make sure we're actually respecting and impacting them in a way that's meaningful. And with that, next item.
Mayor, for the record, I meet with the chief tomorrow, so
Dog, look at that.
Next item is consent calendar items 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Schaefer, second by Ms. Bruins. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item, please.
Next item is public hearing, item number 11. The subject is review 2023 action plan and funding recommendations for the Community Development Block Grant Program. The recommendation is to hear public testimony on the 2023 draft action plan and funding recommendations for the Community Development Block Grant Program, and then continue final action until the October 27th City Council meeting.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council members. Nicole Piva with the Community Development Department. So I'm here tonight to review the draft 2023 recommendations. The purpose of tonight's meeting is we're here to hold a public hearing on the Community Development Block Grant CDBG program. We'll review and receive comment on the draft 23 action plan, and then we'll continue this item to the October 27th council meeting. So we will not be taking any action tonight. A little bit of background on CDBG. Citrus Heights is an entitlement community under the federal CDBG program. And what it is to be an entitlement community, Citrus Heights receives an annual allocation. It's a formula-based allocation, and the grant funds are used to provide decent housing, suitable living environments, and expand economic opportunities primarily to low to moderate income persons. So for an example, 2022 Citrus Heights received $624,000 in annual entitlement funds. CDBG grantees, which the city is the grantee, were required to submit an annual action plan to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. And this plan outlines the activities that are funded and the clients that are served throughout the program year. The program year runs January 1st through December 31st. And CDBG funds, we have two pots that we'll be reviewing tonight. We estimate in 2023 to receive $600,000 in CDBG funds. This is an estimate. During the development of this plan, city has not received its grant money. So we estimate about $600,000. We could receive more, we could receive less. With that, the $90,000 goes towards public services, $120,000 goes towards administration, and the remaining goes towards a capital project. And the second CDBG funding we'll be reviewing tonight is we have some unexpended prior year CDBG funds, which is $270,000. During the development of this action plan, HUD requires the city to have an approved citizen participation plan. And that plan outlines how policies and procedures are related to CDBG items, how the staff engages public on any CDBG item. So in July, we released an application for the public services. July 12th, a workshop was held for any potential applicants that were interested in applying for public service funds. The applications were due August 1st, and staff reviewed those applications, put together a summary. And September 19th, staff met with the Quality of Life Committee, which was Mayor Middleton, Councilmember Bruins. And we reviewed the request, and they provided recommendations on funding. So staff put a draft action plan together, and that was released September 28th for public review. And then we're here tonight to hold the public hearing to review the action plan, and then we'll be back on the 27th for final adoption. This year, we had 5 applicants, the first one being Campus Life Connection. They operate the Sayonara Center. It's the after-school program. They've requested $15,000. The center opened in 2004, and in 2011, a new center was built. Campus Life operates that center, and a list of activities that the center does offer. This is a very limited list. They offer a wide range of activities, some of them including mentoring, tutoring, educational games, technology center, and daily meals. With the CDBG funds, it'll cover personnel cost, and they'll serve approximately 105 youth. Meals on Wheels submitted an application for the senior meal program. They requested $16,000. We've been working with Meals on Wheels since 2010. There's two parts to this program. They have a congregate program, which seniors can come to Rush Park and pick up a meal curbside. Or if you're not able to leave your home, drivers will deliver meals to your home. They can receive one hot meal Monday through Friday or 5 frozen meals one time a week. And the CDBG funds will cover meal costs, and they'll serve approximately 285 seniors. Sacramento Self-Help Housing, they operate the Citrus Heights Navigator program, and they requested $16,000. There's also two parts to this program. We have the Citrus Heights Navigator that provides the housing counseling services to those that are at risk of homeless or those that are homeless. We do have a contract with Self-Help Housing. This is a 5-year contract. It's funded with CDBG and the city's permanent local housing allocation. The second part of this program, we have a supplemental navigator fund. This is a fund that the navigator is able to use to provide any sort of essential services to the clients, such as housing deposits, motel stay, food, transportation, any service that her client needs, she's able to provide to them. And this part of the program is funded with our CV funds. And just to kind of highlight, our navigator does great work with these funds. She's been able to assist 56 households and provide emergency housing and essential services. So with the CDBG funds, it'll cover personnel and program costs, and approximately 112 households will be served. Sacramento Self-Help Housing also submitted an application for the Renters Helpline for $25,000. They provide a telephone internet-based renters helpline service. So a tenant can call in for counseling, dispute resolution, any fair housing services. The city is currently in an existing regional partnership. This is county-wide. So the city's share of this program is $22,524, and this is based off each city's rental units. This activity satisfies the city's obligation to affirmably further fair housing as required by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. And these funds will go towards personnel and program cost, and they will serve about 445 households. The last one is Sunrise Christian Food Ministry. They operate the emergency food closet, and they've requested $39,720. They've been receiving CDBG funds since 2016, and they provide essential food and supply products to really anyone who's in need, specifically to low income or someone who's experiencing homelessness in Citrus Heights. The emergency food closet is open 5 days a week from 11 to 2, and they have a drive-through operation pickup at Advent Lutheran Church on San Juan. And with these funds, it'll cover the food, supplies, and personnel cost. And they'll serve approximately 5,000 Citrus Heights residents. The first funding recommendation, we just went over the organizations that submitted applications. The middle column is their funding request, and then the last column is the quality of life recommendations. I just want to highlight the ones that are in bold, the two self-help housing. These are the two programs that they fully fund, they recommend fully funding. We are in an agreement with Self-Help for the Navigator services, so we funded them at the full amount, $16,000. And the Renters Helpline, they funded them at the city's cost share, which is the $22,524. And the remaining funds, they split between Campus Life, Meals on Wheels, and Sunrise Christian Food Ministry. We took a percentage and split those equally across the board. So if the city does receive more than the $600,000, we will split the additional funding between those three organizations. The second recommendation is to fund a citywide accessibility improvement project. This is with our CDBG allocation for $390,000. It is for ADA accessibility improvements. And the third recommendation is to fund a housing preservation project. We have some unexpended prior year CDBG funds, and the recommendation was to fund the Critical Home Repair Grant Program. This program will assist low-income homeowners with critical health and safety repairs. And a reason why we have these unexpended funds is between 2019 and 2021, we have some capital projects and some public service projects that came in under budget. So we had a little bit of cost savings. So they would like to fund this program. They thought it was very important. We have a wait list of over 60 people. So they wanted to keep this program going. And if it is approved to fund the Critical Home Repair Grant Program, staff would recommend awarding those funds to Rebuilding Together. Rebuilding Together has been managing CDBG funds for the last 25 years. They work with SHRA in the city of Rancho Cordova. They provide safety modifications and critical repairs to eligible low-income homeowners in Citrus Heights. And some of those repairs would be replacing or repairing an HVAC system, replacing or repairing roofs, windows, any accessibility. A homeowner could receive a grant up to $20,000, and they could be a single family house, halfplex, condo, or a mobile home. We are currently working with Rebuilding Together. They have been awarded program administration since the last 2 years, 21 and 22. They've completed 18 projects. And if they are awarded those funds, grants will approximately assist 11 households. The staff recommendation is to hear public testimony on the draft action plan and the funding recommendations for the Community Development Block Grant Program, and to continue this item to the October 27th council meeting.
Comments? Go ahead, Jeannie.
Just one comment. And that is, I just wanted to make sure everybody understands that the reason we're 100% funding the two self-help housing programs is because we have a contractual obligation to do that. And so it's not favoritism by any means. I sit on the committee, and it's always difficult if you don't have as much money to give as the requests are. So the other three programs are equally as deserving for sure, but we do have a contractual obligation to fund Sacramento self-help housing at the levels that we have recommended to the council. Thank you.
On the rehab portion, what process do we use to ensure that those funds are being spent properly, that they're going towards needed repairs, and that those repairs are being done by people who should be doing them?
Yes, so we have a procurement process. We're working with Rebuilding Together currently. So if a homeowner is applying for those funds, they will be income qualified. They will go through a documentation process, and they will work with the Rebuilding Together housing specialist to develop the scope of work and the needed repairs, and the contractors are vetted and licensed. And
how do they make sure that, or do they make sure in some way that, the project is a new front door and the requested funds are $10,000? And yep, we need a new front door, but it shouldn't have cost $10,000. How do we make sure that those things match up?
So the housing specialist is great. He's been doing it for a number of years. So they send us the scope of work and we approve the project. And we also have our building official review those scopes of works as well. So we know that it's not being overcharged.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor, and then Steve.
Well, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to comment and say that I wanted to commend the Quality of Life Committee here for doing a great job and really making these recommendations. And all of these organizations that we work with here are really phenomenal. It's amazing. I have direct experience with the food closet over there. My neighborhood association happens to meet in the church there. They are just amazing. So that's really all I had to comment as just wanted to compliment the mayor and council member Bruins for their recommendations.
Thank you. It's hard indeed. Steve?
Yeah, to dovetail into what Councilmember Daniels was asking on the home repair, I noticed there's an eligibility requirement to be low income. And I would ask, not, you don't have to do it tonight, but a chart of what that is, because I know it depends on family size and all that. And I always forget what that is. And I think we should let the public know if they qualify.
Yes, good point. I should have included that in my presentation. There are income limits for 2022.
Thanks, Nicole.
And this is a public hearing, so I will open said hearing and call up our speakers. So first one will be Julie Habib.
Good evening. My name is Julie Habib, and I'm the site director for the Sayonara Center. In August, we began our 11th year in our building. The school year has been off to a great start with our students. Before the students went back to school, we were able to provide all of them with a new backpack and school supplies of their choice, free dental screening, and a back-to-school photo. We are open to the students 5 days a week for them to come after school and receive a full meal, help with their homework, and be in a positive environment with their friends, volunteers, and center staff. While we are open, our students are also able to paint, bake, and play outside. We recently added artificial turf on the side of our building, so every day out there are picnics and games being played. We also offer a weekly life skills class, and Carlos with Pride Industries has been helping many students with job readiness. At the beginning of the month, we had a special event and 35 students participated in a golf clinic at Foothill Golf Course through the Cameron Champ Foundation. Bear Paw provided boots for all of them at no cost. Commander Fry and the police department provided swag bags and hung out with the students. For the majority, it was their first time being on a golf course, and they all want to return. It was a day we will never forget, as we were all able to learn and experience something new. As the holidays approach, we can't help but be excited about our traditions. We will host a family pumpkin carving night in our parking lot, attend a trunk or treat at the police station, have our annual Friendsgiving dinner for our middle school, high school, and former students, provide Thanksgiving meal baskets to our center families and those in the community, and of course, have many Christmas parties. Seeing our students 4 to 5 days a week has allowed a family-like environment at the Sayonara Center. We get to walk alongside them in life and celebrate their accomplishments, such as getting their permit or driver's license, getting a job, asking a date to homecoming, and making it on a sports team at their school. We also get to be there when they experience heartbreak, have a conflict with a friend, don't get hired, have their mom diagnosed with cancer, and have an uncle shot and killed at the park. We wouldn't be able to provide all these services without your support and our many community partners. Thank you for your faithful partnership and so greatly caring about the children and youth in our community.
Thank you. Next up is Carrie Grip.
Thank you. Thank you to the city council members and mayor and vice mayor for allowing us to come today and speak to you. My name is Carrie Grip, and I'm the executive director of Rebuilding Together. You heard a little bit about it, Rebuilding Together. We are a nonprofit organization that provides home repairs and home accessibility modifications for low-income homeowners. I'd like to thank you and tell you a little bit about the impact of the relationship we have with Citrus Heights and the programs that we have provided. We received CDBG funding from the city of Citrus Heights to help achieve one of the goals in the city's housing element, and that is to preserve the existing housing supply and assuring its continuing quality. The work reduces accumulated deferred maintenance and enhances health and safety and energy efficiency. We started our relationship with the city back 3 years ago when we hosted a project at Rush Park. With the help of a grant from Republic Services, 160 of their employees came out and spruced up the park, as well as replacing the old play structure with a new one. We then received CDBG funding to provide home repairs for Citrus Heights residents. Since then, Nicole mentioned a little bit of it, but we've provided new roofs, 9 new roofs, windows for homes, heating and air conditioning, bathroom accessibility, and new steps. Every day we receive calls from desperate homeowners that are afraid about leaky roofs, dangerous steps, inability to take showers. One of our homeowners recently received new windows because her windows were broken. One of them wasn't even there anymore. She was living with the draft and the safety and security issues that come along with that. Another client could not get into her shower because she was disabled and was unable to access the shower. We were able to make that bathroom more accessible by converting it to a step-in shower that she could use. Another client had a ceiling that some of the panels fell out, and they lived for quite a while with access or exposure to the ceiling and to the roof ahead and the rafters. And we were able to fix that with the funding. As you know, many people, particularly those with disabilities and older adults, live in homes that are substandard and not safe. Because of financial and/or physical limitations, they don't have the resources to complete the major repairs. This program has contributed to the preservation of many homes in this community. As Nicole mentioned, we do have a long waiting list, and we're hoping to be able to work down that waiting list a little bit quicker. We look forward to continuing our relationship with the city and improving the housing stock and the quality of life in Citrus Heights. Thank you so much.
Next, we have April Jack.
Well, I'm not April, but my name's Rocky Peterson, and we want to thank you. As a city, we represent Sunrise Christian Food Ministry. We have been here for 40 years now, and we thank you for your support. We thank you for the ability to be able to represent you to the community by helping feeding the people. But as we've grown and expanded, it's taking more and more people and more help. So I've actually, I'm through, I'm retiring now and turning it over to April. She'll be the new director and has a staff to help her, and I'll let her speak.
Yes, thank you. We're just so excited to continue to do the good work that your help and support allows us to do, not only to serve the community, but also provide a place for the community to serve. Having this 5-day-a-week program to put food in hungry tummies is such a rewarding thing for our volunteers to be able to come every day and do. But it also is just building a community of neighbors that they're so thankful and resilient. So we're just very thankful for your support and look forward to continuing to do the good work as we roll into the holidays and into the new year, where we start to celebrate our 40th year next year, and just very excited to see what's to come. Thank you. Thank you. Go ahead, Jeannie.
Well, before they get too comfortable, I just want to acknowledge Rocky Peterson for the decades of volunteerism and work that he has done to build this food ministry and to expand the number of families and the innovation with which he has operated so much with so little. Thank you, Rocky. I'm glad for you that you're retiring, but I'm sorry to see you go. Thank you.
And next up, we have Tahiri Craft.
Hello, my name is Tahiri Craft from Sacramento Self-Help Housing, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council Member. I personally want to say thank you for your ongoing support for the Renters Helpline. Every day we get calls from tenants in an incredibly stressful situation in their life, trying to figure out what their rights are and to find out they've been discriminated against in their housing. Each month we receive about between 700 and 800 phone calls through the Sacramento area. Since January of this year, in Citrus Heights alone, we received 357 calls. And out of that 357 calls, 28 are possible fair housing issues. Recently, we've noticed an increase trend of actually discriminating against people with disabilities. An example of that is actually a resident of Citrus Heights. This individual turned into accommodations, reasonable accommodations to his apartment complex saying, hey, I need a unit that's more accessible. Oh, by the way, can I also have a parking spot that's closer to my unit? Well, he ended up calling us and we ended up getting back to that apartment complex and getting Project Sentinel involved and explaining the fair housing laws. And all of a sudden they've put that as a priority. And the individual's now in a more accessible unit. And of course, a parking spot near his unit. So that's an example, and I cannot thank you enough of just the ongoing support. It is a supporting project through all 5 jurisdictions, but as you can see, we have made an impact of residents of Citrus Heights, and we will continue to do that. So thank you. I also want to acknowledge, it's really interesting that code enforcement is here tonight, because I do want to also acknowledge that we actually get quite a few phone calls and recommendations through code enforcement, because we teach them about the Renters Helpline. So when they're out and about and they see a tenant that they have concerns with, they actually pass our cards out. So I want to actually give my thank you for them also, because they're actually in the front lines and they actually are working with your tenants out there. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Gary Jones.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. I'm Carrie Jones with Sacramento Self-Help Housing. I'm the Assistant Director of Outreach. And we just want to say thank you for continuing to support the outreach navigators that are out there on the streets every day. Well, not every day, Monday through Friday. We've got full-time navigator Gabby, who's been here for a while. And then recently we've got Yvette, who's been there since March 1st. So there's 2. Just some quick statistics. We kind of get bogged down in the every day of we need water, we need granola bars, we need clothes. And so kind of looking back at stats was really helpful for us to do this because it felt really good. They've done some great work. Thanks to the city of Citrus Heights and all the support. They were able to serve since January 2022 to today, 272 individuals. 51 were aged 55 or older, 43 were children. They did 3,000 services. So services are face-to-face contact, texts, resources for food, clothing, alcohol and drug referrals, permanent housing, mental health, medical, anything that has to do with anything they're struggling with. Some of the outcomes, they've moved 10 people into transitional housing settings, 9 entered substance abuse treatment programs, and 49 were permanently housed since January. None of this could happen with Citrus Heights Heart, all the faith-based communities, Sergeant Semino and Nicole, every 2 weeks, we go over every single case. It's a joy.
We do respite, we do meals, drop-in hours, and it's all because of the entire community. So thank you for the support, and we hope to continue doing it.
Well, quick question.
Yep.
Has the group ever considered using medical students and nursing students to act as health navigators?
Funny you should say that. I just had the conversation today and I haven't told you yet, Nicole. One of our directors that we work with at SAC Self-Help, his wife is a nurse and she is going to start volunteering. I don't know if it's going to be once or twice a month at a drop-in. We need to talk details on that. But yes, I think that that would be really helpful just to kind of guide them through, where do I go for this? Where, I need this, or maybe Social Security benefits, applying for that. So, yeah.
Yeah, just before we did the library car presentation, I think it was Philadelphia or in the SEPTA Transit Agency that was doing that for the homeless, so to use their facilities, the
Yeah.
transit facilities, and it's been real successful.
Yeah, I think it would be nice to have somebody available. Maybe you say the second and the fourth Wednesday at these drop-in hours, a nurse will be available for, triage.
They're available for field work too.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for all you do.
And last but certainly not least, Robin Smith.
Hello, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council, City Council members. This is Michelle Bustamante. She's our Operations Manager at Meals on Wheels. I'm Robin Smith. I'm the Volunteer Specialist. We just wanted to come here today to say thank you for all the support that we've received from the City of Citrus Heights. Because of that support, we've been able to provide nutritious meals with not just somebody showing up, but with a smile to our most vulnerable population. This calendar year, from January 1st through August 31st, we have served approximately 24,000 meals to 200 Citrus Heights seniors. Of that, roughly 20,000 of the meals were delivered to 150 homebound participants and 4,000 meals to 50 curbside pickup participants. We're also excited to announce that we're now serving fresh, locally prepared meals instead of the meals we had been serving previously. Thank you as well for your ongoing support and the increase that was given to us through the Community Support Funding Grant. Our operational costs have greatly increased from last fiscal year to this one, but between the two grants, we will be able to serve 32,663 meals to Citrus Heights seniors. Need for our service has remained high program-wide, and we are taking on average 280 applications a month. That does not just include Citrus Heights, but that's throughout our whole company, throughout Sacramento County. And the City of Citrus Heights has always been such a wonderful supporter to our organization. So again, we wanted to say thank you, and we look forward to continuing to serve those most in need.
Thank you.
Any questions that you guys have for us?
Thank you for all that you do.
Well, thank you guys. Yeah, you guys have been a great support to us.
And with that, I would request a motion to continue from the council.
So moved to our date-specific October 27th.
Thank you. All right, a motion by Mr. Miller, second by Bruins. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved.
Madam Mayor, just to clarify, the motion would be to hold the public hearing open until October 27th, date certain. That way we don't have to re-agendize it, repost it. And I think that's
what I meant to
Yeah,
say. It
that's
just didn't come out
exactly-
right.
That's exactly what I heard. Yeah, there we
A
go.
lot of words.
so moved. We're
Let,
good.
let the record reflect that. Next item, please. We have to vote.
Next
Oh, we have to do it again?
No, no.
Oh,
we're fine.
Did we vote?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, we did.
All that happened. Okay. Oh, stop it. I mean, it's too early for this. Next item, please.
Next item is public hearing number 12. The subject is 2022 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant, JAG funding. The recommendation is to adopt a resolution accepting 2022 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant funds in accordance with state requirements.
Well, good evening, Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. Chris Fry, Operations Commander with the Police Department. This evening, I'm here to present the 2022 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant, otherwise known as the JAG Grant. Each year, the Bureau of Justice Assistance partners with the Bureau of Justice Statistics to allocate funding for each state, which is based on the state's violent crime and population size. The state's award amount is then divided between the state and local governments at a rate of 60% and 40% respectively. Under this program, cities and counties receive federal funds to augment public safety expenditures. This is a non-competitive grant program, and there is no guarantee for funding or minimum allocations. The awarded funds from the grant must be used for law enforcement activities. This also includes equipment needs. The police department was awarded this year $23,593 for the 2022 JAG grant, which must be expended by September 30th, 2023. Funding from the grant is going to be utilized to purchase tablets for our police vehicles. There's no matching fund requirements, and the purchases will be made in accordance with the city's adopted purchasing policy and procedures. The police department is requesting to strategically use the grant funds to support the department's equipment and training initiatives. This request will support our goal to provide exceptional police services to the community and enhance our officer safety. At this time, staff is recommending the council to adopt a resolution accepting the aforementioned recommended expenditures for the 2022 JAG grant. And with that, I'm willing to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions from council? None. It's a public hearing. I'll open the hearing. No, nothing? All right, I'll close it. What's the pleasure of the council?
I move that we issue a resolution to accept the 2022 Edward Burns Memorial Justice Assistance Grant funds in accordance with state requirements.
I second.
Motion by Bruin, second by Vice Mayor Schaefer. All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. And next item, please.
Next item is public hearing number 13. The subject is amendment to Chapter 98 Utilities of the Citrus Heights Municipal Code. The recommendation is to introduce for a first reading and read by title only and waive the full reading of an ordinance amending Chapter 98 Utilities of the Citrus Heights Municipal Code.
Microphone,
Can you
please.
turn on your microphone?
There we go. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. Hunter Young with General Services. We're here this evening to present to you on a topic about amending Chapter 98 of our municipal code related to what is we'll call underground utility districts. So what is an underground utility district? That's kind of the key part of this. It is a geographic area in which the overhead utilities are, we would require that the utility providers place those underground, and then the wood utility poles along the corridor would be removed. Now, the driving force of why we're having this conversation relates to Auburn Boulevard itself, and I'll get to that momentarily. Currently, Chapter 98 of the Municipal Code deals with utilities. Articles 1 through 5 deal with water, storm drain, and sanitary sewer, but they do not address the topic of underground utility districts. So our proposal for council to consider is an amendment to Chapter 98 to go ahead and create some language that would allow the council to create or establish an underground utility district when that is necessary and appropriate. Well, the question of why now, given the history with Auburn Boulevard, this project is by far the largest public works project that the city has undertaken. It's taken many years, a lot of staff time, a lot of funding from various partners to get to this point. As noted here in the first bullet point, Auburn Boulevard, the undergrounding of phase 1, it started at Sylvan Corners and it went north to Rush Park, and that completed in 2013. So it's been some time. In doing some research, staff was able to locate that there was a study session with council many years ago that indicated that this topic was discussed at least, but an amendment to the municipal code was not addressed at that time. It was also determined that moving forward with an underground utility district for phase 1 on Auburn Boulevard wasn't necessary at that time. Since then, we've come a long ways. We've worked on phase 2 in terms that starts from Rush Park, heads north to the northern city limits. And in doing so, we've been working with our utility providers specifically with SMUD, with Comcast, and with CCI. These are the three major players that will be going underground and as part of the overall project. But at this time, our utility providers and city staff, we would like to see that and recommend that a underground utility district be established. This would require that the utilities go underground, and it would also prevent that future utility installations be above ground. So on a technical standpoint, phase one right now, if a new utility were to come to town, there's nothing to prohibit them necessarily from an overhead installation. And so we want to prohibit that moving forward. It provides for a clean corridor, and it provides a lot of aesthetics, and it also gets rid of some of the other, clogging up kind of the overall sidewalk width and providing as much space for people to use the sidewalks. So we're talking about, in terms of funding, this evening's conversation and public hearing has to relate to amending the municipal code. There is no funding or financial impact associated with this action. Now, we are proposing to return to council in a couple of weeks, where if the council is approving of this measure this evening, we would have a second reading in 2 weeks. That same evening, we would come back and request that the council actually take the action to establish an underground utility district on Auburn Boulevard. So it's a multi-step process. And that underground utility district would go from Sylvan Corners all the way up to the northern city limits. So it encompasses both phase one and phase two of the project. And well, I guess I beat myself to the next step slide. So with that, I would be happy to entertain any questions that the council may have.
Tim.
Thank you, sir. So I have a question with regard to, so we would own the utility district, correct? The city of Citrus Heights would own that particular easement or whatever that
Well,
corridor it would be.
There's nothing really to own. The right of way is ours. Right now, our municipal code allows for, let's say a private development comes in. There's provisions to require that the utilities be placed underground on that lot. However, in the public right of way on a street corridor, there's not. And so this is the mechanism that we would use to dictate to the utility providers that you need to go underground. So we don't really have anything to own other than we're establishing a district. It's not like an assessment district in the sense that there's funding and things of that nature, where you're simply outlining a geographic area and saying, if you want to play ball here, you need to have an underground installation.
On my follow-up question, that would be if, and I don't know if these have been phased out but used to be that we would have the transformers on the power poles explode on a periodic basis. I've been present when one has exploded. It's pretty devastating. You put that underground, what happens to the other utilities that are there where that type of thing would happen? Certainly if you had some kind of power disruption from the power generation lines, how does that responsibility that repair get doled out? Does any of that fall back onto the city to say, okay, well, we have to either mitigate that or we have to, what is our responsibility with that?
So once the utility is in place, then we don't have any actual responsibility. The utility provider still is on the hook for maintenance. As it relates to the transformer discussion, we're working with SMUD right now, and it's the electric provider. There will be above ground transformers. So we're not placing anything underground. There will be vaults where the cables go in and out underground. But as is the case today in many of our neighborhoods, there's what we call pad mounted transformers. They're kind of these green utility boxes. They're not the most sightly things, but those are mounted on a concrete pad and they're just at ground level. And they're in many of the different businesses that we have. And those are still maintained then by SMUD and things of that nature. So it isn't that the city necessarily has to respond to that if there is an emergency.
And if I could add, we're looking at one in the picture. And the other thing, there's switches on the poles and those go in green boxes too, next to the transformer so they can switch the circuits. And you're right, it's a little unsightly. But typically the larger cities, they go underground in vaults and we've seen that where they blow and do quite damage, but they're separated from the other utilities. It does damage to the underground wires, but typically SMUD just puts them on a pad.
Appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation tonight. So we have First of all, my first question is this underground utility district able to be expanded to other locations, or would that require an additional underground utility district?
So when the district is first created, it does have, there is a map. There's this very specifically defined area. And I don't have that map here, although
We know the street.
it would exhaust the size of the screen. It's quite large. That being said, if you wanted to expand it, that could be done, but it would be subject to another public hearing and another utility district being created.
Okay, so what about all of the streets that already have underground utilities?
This is not impacting other streets that already have underground utilities.
So if they didn't have if they don't have districts, underground utility districts in those areas, potentially another provider could come in and do aerial.
Yes, if there's not an actual established underground utility district, then yes, an aerial overhead communication line or electric
Does that
line could be.
include residential neighborhoods as well?
So there are laws that surround a lot of this, and I'm not an expert in that field. Typically, when it comes to SMUD or the other utility providers, I know we don't use PG&E for electric here, but they have a lot of their own requirements as to what streets are even willing to underground. And so residential streets is immediately off the list. Auburn Boulevard being a major corridor is something that does meet certain criteria for the public safety, for the health and liability and things of that nature. So residential streets are immediately not a candidate for this type of thing.
Okay, so, because I don't know, this is all new to me, so I might be asking silly questions, but what's to stop us from just declaring all of our commercial corridors as including the ones that already have underground utilities as part of the district?
Technically, I don't know that there's anything that could necessarily stop us from doing that. It is a huge endeavor, both from a time commitment and from a funding perspective. Now, SMUD, from a financial perspective, they're willing to fund a small portion or their pro rata share of the cost. On Auburn Boulevard itself, for example, we as the city will eventually hire a contractor. We will dig a trench, we will place those pipes in the grounds, and they're allocated some for SMUD, some for CCI, and some for Comcast. Then the utility providers will come in and they will pull all of their new cables. The cost is exorbitant. SMUD is committed no less than $750,000. It's possible that they'll be able to provide more than that. Actually, they're still kind of fine tuning some numbers. But that being said, from my experience in a prior position, not with Citrus Heights, PG&E had told me the cost to underground is typically around $5 million a mile. It's something that is exorbitant. The city doesn't have the financial resources to absorb that. So even if we created an underground utility district on all of our major corridors, you're talking millions of dollars and years of effort to get there.
Well, I guess my question was in relationship to those commercial quarters that already have the utilities undergrounded. And so it just would keep future providers from going overhead. So that's where not that we would I'd love to see the entire city undergrounded, no question about it. But I wasn't suggesting that we look at corridors that have overhead lines now, but does it make sense to have districts in all of our existing undergrounded major corridors, or no?
That would be a conversation that I think could be had. I'm not sure that there's a reason to move forward with
But
it.
tonight, we're just addressing Auburn. I realize that.
I will say, though, that if an underground utility district is established, there is a set time requirement that is included in the resolution itself. So for Auburn, for example, when we return in a couple of weeks, the proposal at that time will be 3.5 years from now to make sure that that's the window in which all of the construction needs to take place. So if you were to establish a district for, let's say, ensuring future installations are underground, you would be forcing the current utility providers to move and go underground as well. So you couldn't have a hybrid where you leave the other aerial utilities as is and prohibit future installations.
Okay, go ahead, but let's not get too far in the weeds here.
Not to get too far in the weeds, but my question would be, so who sets the time frame for this? Or the 3.5 years you just said?
That would be staff, and I base that on what our
You say
projected
make
timeline
20
is.
years? Could we,
Say again?
could we make it 20 years if we needed to, if it made sense?
For Auburn Boulevard specifically, or are you talking about just in
I'm talking
general?
about for the utility districts outside of Auburn Boulevard where we're not forcing the,
Suppose that's possible.
okay.
I think this is a great question for us, for our upcoming strategic planning session to kind of look into.
I have some questions.
Okay.
Since tonight we're voting on something. I just want to make sure I understand. So development doesn't trigger undergrounding right in front of it, correct?
There's a separate section in the municipal code that would deal with undergrounding as it relates to private utility or private development.
So
This is strictly talking about public right of way.
So I just want to make sure I'm clear because this is kind of concerning to me. There's a wonderful little family tea shop there in that picture that is going to go away, and there might exist then a corporate coffee shop in that area. A whole rebuild is my understanding. Is that going to then trigger them to have to go out and underground the utilities in front of the property there?
Well, we're working with the development or developer at this time as far as coordination. But you're saying the overhead utilities in this photo, would they be undergrounded as part of it? No, we're talking specifically about the site utilities going out to the street and making sure those connections are undergrounded, but they're not necessarily responsible for undergrounding all of the overhead utility lines on the major corridor.
And you just said not necessarily. So I'm just trying to make sure I'm clear. Is that development potentially on the hook for undergrounding that utility out near the street?
Hi, sorry to interrupt. Regina Cave, General Services Director. So the General Services Department and Community Services Department have been working with those developers, but specifically why we're taking this to council for approval is to codify this as part of the Auburn Boulevard project as a requirement with SMUD. In order for us to move forward with the undergrounding of all these overhead utilities, we must establish a district. And that demonstrates to SMUD and the other utility companies that their investment would be in perpetuity, that no other utility company can come in and erect any poles. Your question, Councilmember Daniels, those poles will be underground in all those utilities as part of our obligation with the project. This is not put back on the developer for that location that
Say
you're talking
project,
about.
you mean the
For the Auburn Boulevard,
project.
correct.
Okay, so I just want, I'm just trying to make sure that we don't establish something where development could be hindered by us saying, well, if you're going to develop that property, you're going to have to put all the utilities by the street underground at your expense.
Correct. This will all be
That's not
underground.
Going to happen with this.
Not with this. This will actually all be on the city's dime and along with all the grant funding that we are putting together for this project.
Thank you very much. Thank
My
you.
apologies if I misunderstood your question.
Thank you.
Seeing no further questions from the council, this is a public hearing, and I'll open said hearing. Thank you. Seeing no one rush up to the dais here, I'll close the hearing. Mr. Miller, what would the council like to do?
We'd like to continue this item for action and anything else our city attorney would add as my motion. Is that-
I will make a motion.
Oh,
Thank you,
That
Mr.
we end
Daniels.
this For the first reading, read by title only, and waive the full reading of ordinance for
Oh.
the such and such an ordinance of the city council of the city of Citrus Heights amending chapter 98 utilities of the Citrus Heights Municipal Code.
I won't make you do it again with your mic on.
I'll second that motion.
Second by Ms.
that was a
Bruins.
continued item. Sorry about that.
All those in favor?
That was,
Aye.
aye.
Motion passes. Next item, please.
Next item is regular calendar, item number 14. The subject is amending various sections of chapter 18 of the Citrus Heights Municipal Code relating to buildings and building regulations. And the recommendation is to introduce for first reading, read by title only, and waive the full reading of an ordinance amending chapter 18 of the municipal code relating to buildings and building regulations and adopting by reference the 2022 California Administrative Code, Building Code, Residential Code, Electrical Code, Mechanical Code, Plumbing Code, Green Building Standards Code, Energy Code, and Existing Building Code.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of the council. Greg Anderson, Chief Building Official. The California Building Standards Commission publishes the California Code of Regulations every 3 years. The Code of Regulations had the same force as law in In this cycle, the 22 California Code of Regulations will have an effective date of January 1, 2023. Staff is recommending approval of the 22 California Code of Regulations, including local amendments and specific dependencies. And I'll bring those up as follows. First, we have the California Administrative Code, the 22 edition. That's going to be as printed with no amendments. Secondly, we have the California Building Code, 22 edition, volume 1, 2, including chapter 1, division 2, and appendix I, except as otherwise amended in section 1889. Section 1889 has to do with the local amendments. The first one is chapter 1, division 2, section 105.5 has to do with expiration of building permits. This is, in short, it's consistent with what council approved and adopted in the 2019 code cycle. It just further expands the expiration date of the permit, the life of the permit. So the maximum lifespan of the permit, instead of being 1 year, is actually expanded to 2 years. And it also covers the general expiration of the permit. You have 12 months to where you could have a lull in work or no action on that permit. If there's no action within 12 months, the permit will expire. It also states that you have the option to request an extension of that permit to the building official. That extension, if approved, would be an additional 12 months, but in no way will the permit have a lifespan longer than 2 years. At 2 years, they would have to reapply and get a new permit. So that is pretty consistent with what we did in the 2019 code cycle. The other amendment, we only have two, really, the expiration amendment is actually going to repeat itself in the building code, the residential code, mechanical code, and the plumbing code. It's kind of the same throughout. The next one is California Building Code, Chapter 31. It is has to do with pool enclosures. So swimming pool safety, in the last code cycle, 2019, they introduced some verbiage out of the health and safety code. It kind of changed the child safety requirements for swimming pools as it has been in the past, particularly into enclosures. They were allowing removable enclosures, the mesh type fencing as an enclosure, and we wanted to keep our enclosures as a solid, non-removable, permanent type fence. So there's a definition in enclosures that we modified to state that the swimming pool or spa shall be isolated from the access from other properties by an enclosure that meets the requirements of section 115.923 and shall also be equipped with at least 2 of the following 7 drowning safety measures. So the biggest thing was the enclosure has to be a permanent type fence that protects the pool from not only the property it serves, but adjoining properties.
Question is, Greg, is this retroactive or just new construction?
This is any permit for a swimming pool or a swimming pool remodel.
Existing wouldn't have to change unless they did some
Correct.
kind of change.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Next, we have the California Electrical Code, the 2022 edition. That is adopted as written with no amendments. And we have the California Mechanical Code, 22 edition, including Chapter 1, Division 2, Administration. Again, this covers the permit expiration that we covered with the building code. Next, we have the California Plumbing Code, 2022 edition, including Chapter 1, Division 2. That is the same as the expiration in the building code. Next, we have the California Energy Code, 2022 edition. That's as written with no amendments. Next, there's the 2022 California Green Building Standards Code. That is as written with no amendments. And lastly, we have the California Residential Code, 2022 edition, including Chapter 1, Division 2. That covers the expiration. Also included in the adoption is Appendix AH, which is special provisions for patio covers. Section AH 101 through AH 105.2 and Appendix AQ. AQ is special provisions for tiny homes that are not new, but there is a little bit of difference from the previous code cycle in 2019. I believe we had some special provisions back then. This is covering more of the minimum required area for lofts, headroom, and also covers the required egress for those loft areas. And it also covers provisions for ladders and ship ladders to access those lofts. So the fiscal impact, there will be no fiscal impact with the city's general fund. The ordinance does not modify any city Citrus Heights building or development fees. Training required for the implementation of the new codes is provided for under the current building division budget. The California Code of Regulations, Title 24, is published every 3 years. Adopting the codes by reference allows local amendments to the state codes as necessary to reflect local conditions. The California Building Standards Commission requires implementation of the 2022 California Code of Regulations starting January 1st, 2023. 2019 California Code of Regulations will remain in effect and applicable to all plans, specifications, and construction performed under that building permit where the application for a permit is submitted before December 31st, 2021. Any applications for permit submitted after January 1, 2023 will fall under the 2022 California Code of Regulations and remain in effect until that job is complete. So with this new adoption and the new provisions, extensive community outreach regarding the new codes will take place over the next several months and into the next year. Staff will be providing new updates on our website and continue to answer questions and do public outreach as we can. That was all I had. With that, I take any questions.
Well,
Let me make up for my last motion.
it's okay.
I move that we pass an ordinance amending Chapter 18 of the Citrus Heights Municipal Code relating to buildings and building regulations and adopting by reference the 2022 California Administrative Code, Building Code, Residential Code, Electrical Code, Mechanical Code, Plumbing Code, Green Building Standards Code, Energy Code, and last but not least, the California Existing Building Code. Did I get it right?
Beautiful.
We need a few more.
The elevator code. I don't know.
Motion by Miller, second by Daniels. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next item,
much.
please. Thank you.
Next item is regular calendar, item number 15. The subject is maintenance and enhancement strategy to identify centerline miles of roadways in need of restriping and minor roadway repairs. The recommendation is to receive staff's presentation and provide direction.
Help me from here, Amy. Thank you. Gina Cave, General Services Director. Good evening, Mayor, Council, council members. So this item here before you is directly from the council strategic goal that was adopted back in May, and to present a maintenance and enhancement strategy to identify centerline miles of roadways in need of striping and other minor roadway repairs. This item was also identified in the focus area plan. So we would look at this long term. So of our general inventory estimates, we have approximately 105.7 centerline miles, which equates to about 200 lane miles of striped lanes. Just quickly, the difference between the two is one center line is from point A to point B on a corridor. So for instance, Greenback Lane is 3.5 miles thereabouts. but you've got 6 lanes, 3 lanes in each direction, plus all your center turn pockets. So it takes, is about 22 miles total when you're looking at lane miles. And then we have about 67 signalized intersections with crosswalks throughout the city and about 850 stop signs. This does not encompass all of our striped areas, but this just gives kind of a general ballpark of what our majority are and the higher priorities. Of our inventory strategy, we would utilize available imagery that was collected as part of the payment management system update to generate a citywide inventory when we did the payment management update a couple of years ago. Lucky for us, they were able to take a lot of 3D, 360-degree imagery of all of our streets. And so we've learned that that data can be extrapolated. We can develop an inventory, and it also has inspection information in there that indicates the existing condition of the striping. So we can pull that information from the inventory and generate cost estimates, and also again, develop some level of prioritization and kind of mesh that with our pavement strategy as well as we move along with resurfacing our streets. And then in addition to that, we would be looking at coordinating any necessary minor pavement repairs to coincide. Again, this would be irrespective of the existing pavement conditions. We would still be looking to restripe our streets. So this next step would be to complete the strategic goal would be for general services to coordinate with a consultant to produce the inventory data, establish a report of priority locations and applications, and generate cost estimates. And then we would report back to City Council during this budget preparation cycle to recommend a plan and potential funding resources to increase the output of striping maintenance in the program. Currently, we have about $75,000 a year that we put forth towards our striping. Based upon the data that was provided in the staff report, we have well over $1.5 million worth of striping citywide that we would be looking at. And so we would need to strategize that better. And that is it for this. There was no direction really being requested, but if council has any questions for me, or if you would like to see some other information come back in the future.
Thing from council? No? Okay.
I think this is really important.
Okay, go ahead, Steve.
Is it, did we lose power?
No.
Or is that just me?
No, I think when I,
Oh, it's, the screen went off.
Right there.
That's what it was. There we go. I'm sorry. Especially with lane correction on our vehicles now, and thank you for doing, we did the whole length of Greenback because of that. And you just can't see them. And I wonder sometimes if people blow these stop signs because there's no limit line and you can't read the stop. In particular, Mariposa is just, there's nothing left. And I think it adds to the beautification of our city. I think folks feel a lot better than our roads, potholes and all, if you could see the striping. So right now, where the trench cuts are by, like the water company and stuff, they have to put that bike lane back in. That's better looking than, there's no bike lane on either side of the trench cut. So that's good. And I know this is not just spray and paint. It's a very expensive reflective material that gets painted, but hopefully we get, afford to do a higher grade so that it'll last a little longer for us.
we do specify for thermoplastic, which has that reflectivity and it lasts longer.
I look forward to this. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Next item is regular calendar item, regular calendar item number 16. The subject is considerations and options for sound wall repair and beautification. And recommendation is to receive staff presentation and provide direction.
Evening again, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. Regina Cave, General Services Department. So this item is for options for sound wall repair and beautification. This item, similar to the last, was identified as part of a council strategic goal, and this was to evaluate options for sound wall repair and beautification. Now, the goal was to identify the sound wall locations and ownership primarily. A lot of the walls that we have throughout this community that we've heard about over the years in terms of the aesthetics, they are privately owned walls. These are walls that were constructed as part of development projects prior to the city's incorporation. And at that time, Sacramento County did not condition those developers to construct and dedicate them to the city. So even though they are fronting our arterials and our major corridors, they are privately owned. So those walls that are fronting the public right of way along the major roadways, arterials and collectors, we calculated somewhere around approximately 14,000 linear feet of walls that have been identified. These are, again, privately owned sound walls that do not have any barriers or vegetation in front of them. Some of them do have some landscape, shrubs and or ivy that are growing over them. So it does provide a barrier as well as prohibits graffiti. And then various conditions of repair. Some of them are ranging from no apparent damage to some more extensive wear and tear. Samples of locations that we've heard of in the past that council has communicated on, as well as our residents. These are areas along Oak Avenue, Old Auburn. On the bottom left is Sunrise, and on the bottom right is Auburn Boulevard by San Tomas. As you can see, they're all in different conditions, some with wood above, some without. Some of them are prefab, what we consider prefabbed or prefabricated panels. Some are more masonry, concrete blocks. So we do have an opportunity for enhancement, even though these are privately owned walls. We would look to improve the appearance through a pressure washing and repainting. This would be through outsourced contract. It would achieve a more consistent appearance around the community along our business areas, as well as our residential areas that front the major corridors. We would look to apply an anti-graffiti coating wherever possible. A lot of these walls, they look the way they do with the patchwork because they've had graffiti done so many times over the years, and it's been difficult to match those paints. And our total estimate is somewhere around $145,000, and that would include a buffer for any minor incidentals. Now, we would have to go through and do inspections on each of these locations for structural damages and determine if even the pressure washing itself could exacerbate any of these issues before we would decide if we can touch those walls. Once we touch them and we cause damage, we could potentially own them. So the potential work plan would be for council to provide direction to staff. If you want us to proceed with developing a request for proposal to include defined locations and the parameters of work for all these walls. And then we would return to council at a later date to identify and formally program funds in advance of advertising that proposal. For any questions?
Thank you. So does the $145,000, does that cover all the 14, would you say 14,000 miles?
14,000 feet.
Sorry. Of concrete or other.
Of a concrete masonry type of stone walls. And that was estimating at about 7 feet high and working with our contractor. Now we know they're not all that high. And some
Right.
of them do have wood paneling. So we would look to not paint those unless absolutely
Right.
necessary.
So since these are private walls on private property, how do we interact with the private property owners?
We
Do
would
we have
make-
to get their permission? Do we have liability issues or?
We would look at doing some significant outreach and contacting each of those property owners to advise, and we would work with our legal counsel to see if we can do basically here, this is what the city is planning on doing. You would have X amount of days to notify us if you appeal this or you do not want us to touch the wall. Otherwise, we will take this as your consent. This is discussions that we've had internally.
Okay, so that's an assumed consent unless they object, basically. I can't imagine anybody objecting to having someone else paint their wall and make it look beautiful, but, okay. And so then our normal insurance covers any liability for.
That's why we would do the initial inspection of each of these locations to make sure before we touch them,
Okay.
if there are any massive concerns before we touch them. Again, if there are any minor repairs, we could potentially do that. But once we start having to replace entire panels or segments, that's a full reconstruction. That's a different category.
Right, okay, thank you. Like the project. And the funding is coming from what?
We would seek direction from council on that one.
I see.
But we do have an opportunity potential for ARPA use in the future, if that's so selected.
Yes, go ahead.
Thanks, Regina, for a lot of work you've put into tonight's presentations, all of them. So my concern is that we're talking about potentially a lot of property owners here involved, meaning that if there's a sound wall behind my house, I technically would own that particular section. So if I decided, oh, I want to go out and put a peace sign up there. Now you've given the idea to go paint the wall. Now I'm going to put my own artwork up there. How do we manage that piece?
Question. I would look to legal to see if there's any way that we would put into effect any kind of, I don't know if it by ordinance or something that stipulates that owners of private walls that are fronting public rights of way are not allowed to put any type of unapproved signage or.
Legal?
Yeah, I think there is a potential there. I would work with Regina and see if we can modify the ordinance to add something like that to it. But it's not in there yet, but it's something we could consider.
We can expect that to kind of come back with the full, okay, yeah. Okay. Any other comments about this, what we're talking about here this evening?
Well, are you looking for direction from us tonight regarding funding, or is that coming back?
That could come back at a later time. Right now is direction if you would like us to go ahead and proceed with doing formal inspections of each of these locations, identifying the parameters and developing a request for proposal.
I think this would do a lot to enhance the beautification of our city, so I'm in favor of this.
Me too.
Mr. Daniels?
Absolutely.
Miller? Okay, there you go.
Go.
Direction. I appreciate it.
All right, next item.
Next item is department reports, and there are none. The next item is city manager items.
Evening, Mayor, Council, Ashley Finney, your city manager. I do have a few slides to augment my updates here, and just want to thank staff for their presentations tonight. And the last couple items you heard about are definitely tied to our focus area work plan and our 6-month strategic goals to in and around beautification and some infrastructure improvements. So I look forward to those coming back in the future. So on the city manager updates, we do have a few updates here for you. If we can go to the next slide, please. We talked a little bit about this as part of your council comments, but Sunday Fun Day was a lot of fun. We had a great turnout from the community there. We had over 4,000 attendees, and the outreach that was done across the various media channels, we estimate they reached over almost 250,000 people. So you can see a few pictures here from the tree planting ceremony. Looks like we have, I believe it's Officer French out there with a motorcycle and a child checking it out. I don't think they did any hot laps, but I can't be sure. And then a lot of community interacting with our neighborhood associations, our service clubs, businesses and various booths out there. So a great event. If I could go to the next slide, please. Our police traffic unit, some good news. Actually, I think Sergeant Kassam, there he is. I think he came in on his trusty steed this evening, coming into council tonight. So great news. Officer Zach Harrison and Sergeant Kane Kassam did graduate from the motor school and field training. So now we have, you'll see around the city, 4 different motor units that are out there operating. And I've been hearing from folks that have been seeing them around and in action, and just very happy about that. Go to the next slide. More good news. We had a comprehensive plan for Sunrise Tomorrow win the Award of Excellence from the American Planning Association. You can see it was presented to Casey Kempinar. We may need to get a bigger trophy case with all the awards that plan's been getting. So it was great to see that recognition of a lot of the hard work that the team put into that. If we can go to the next slide, some upcoming events here. State of the City. October is a very busy month. State of the City is on Thursday, October 20th. That's at 6:30 to 7:30, where the mayor and myself will address the community on the past year and some forward-looking statements as well. Again, 6:30 to 7:30 at the community center. We have a 25th anniversary concert with Capital Pops. It's further celebrations in around the 25th year of incorporation. That'll be on Saturday, October 22nd, right here at City Hall out front from 2 to 4. So it'll be a great event. Hoping to see the community turn out to that and celebrate that, that great day. Strategic planning retreat. We have that scheduled for our, it's a public meeting, but it's a retreat where our staff and our city council get together and talk through our next 6-month goals. That's scheduled for Tuesday, October 25th. Eat your Wheaties that morning. It's from 8:30 to approximately 4 p.m., 3 to 4 p.m. that day. And that's here at City Hall in the large conference community room just right across the hall.
Will there be snacks?
There'll be some snacks. Absolutely.
Okay, I'll show up then.
we can't have hangar or people dropping off there. So we'll definitely have that available. But busy October and more to come probably next month. So that's all my comments for tonight.
Thank you. Next item.
Next item is items requested by council members or future agenda items.
Do we have any requests from members of the council?
Yes.
Okay, Vice Mayor.
Hey, thank you, Mayor. So what I'd like to do is invite my colleagues up here to support the idea of putting together a commission to explore, and this is inspired by my reading of the becoming of the city of Citrus Heights. It really, I want to applaud Jeannie and all the folks that were involved in that for what a tremendous project and what a inspiring story. But what I'd like to do is establish a commission, volunteer base through the council would establish, number one, establish the commission, invite the community to apply, and this would be to establish our own school district. That would be a Citrus Heights Unified School District. So that's my suggestion.
We'll second that.
I would say let's really flesh this out and put it onto our strategic plan.
Support that.
I do too. I mean, I understand where you're coming from and I don't disagree with you, but I've done some research on that. It's a huge, huge undertaking. So I think that we should have a discussion about that in our strategic planning meeting and then where it goes from there.
Okay. Is there anything else? Go ahead, Mr. Miller.
I have an item that for me is uncomfortable, but it needs to be said. And I personally believe in punishing in private and praising in public, but in my opinion, this crossed the line. This past week, Councilmember Schaefer, in his capacity as Vice Mayor, authored a community voice article that appeared in the Citrus Heights Sentinel attacking past actions of current council members and including a current council candidate, all in violation of the city's code of conduct. And this is specifically spelled out in the communications section of our city council handbook. There was no disclaimer that his words were his personal opinion. And so by inference, he has made his statements appear to be representative of the city and our official position. I'm asking for at least 2 other fellow council members to support my request for review of this matter by our city attorney's office with a report back as an agenda item on their findings. This should be expedited because of the implication now that we support unfounded and untrue accusations being made about others and the implication we support interference in the free election process. Just looking for support.
I am unaware of this, so I'm going to remain silent on it.
Well, at a minimum, I think we should all reacquaint ourselves with the handbook that we developed. And if changes need to be made, if there's disagreements, we can talk about that in our strategic planning.
I agree with that, Steve. Let's revisit that handbook.
Okay.
Mr. Daniels?
Well, we might as well go for the trifecta. So if you haven't seen the news today, a group of adults entered a school in the Sacramento School District and attacked a student. It's been almost 150 days since I suggested we examine public schools in Citrus Heights to make recommendations to enhance security for our kids. To date, I've seen no enhancements. Each day I have to take my daughter to a school that has zero ability to stop an intruder. There are 3 wide open areas into the school. And for me, the solution is obvious, and that is I believe we need to have a police officer at each school. And I'm asking 2 of my council members to join me in directing the city manager to bring back to the council by no later than the first council meeting in January, the feasibility, including funding options to place a police officer in each public school.
Not that I disagree, but I really do think that that is something that should be discussed with the police department and with the school board members. I don't think that that's within our purview to force something that is not there.
That's my point. I want to have a feasibility study on it and see what we can or cannot do in that regard.
I second that.
Okay, I'll be that third one. Let's look at the feasibility of it and see what comes of it at the directions that Councilmember Daniels laid out.
Bearing in mind the limitations we have with staffing to do something like that.
Thank you, Ms. Burns. Gosh, I mean, you know what? Next time, guys, break it up over multiple meetings, all right? Come on. It's a lot for me.
We got through it.
All right, okay. If there's nothing else, we are adjourned.
Great.